10, 9.
Cigarettes and rocket fuel. Sock it to me,
5,
baby.
4, 3, 2.
We choose to go to the moon.
0. All engines running. Commit.
We choose to go to the moon.
Liftoff. We have liftoff at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All 9 here, let's go all the way. Everything looks good. Roger. All right, copy.
KHCN-AM 4747, Houston, Texas. News you can use and talk that matters.
Once he walks out of the precinct, Frank Bullitt is strictly his own man, doing things his own way. There are some things we'd like you to know about this man called Bullitt. 1, he has a life expectancy of a sheet of Kleenex. 2, he's a babysitter for a time bomb. 3, he's a girl's hang-up that will cure all her other hang-ups. 4, there are good cops and there are bad cops. And then there's Bullitt. 5, Steve McQueen is Frank Bullitt. Bullitt from Warner Brothers 7 Arts in Technicolor, co-starring Jacqueline Bisset and Robert Vaughn, suggested for mature audiences.
Bullitt, showing nightly. All Houston theaters and drive-ins all over town. Hempstead, Shepherd, Irvington, Pasadena, Airline South Main, and the Thunderbird Drive-In. Double feature at the Market Street Drive-In. Cool Hand Luke, be there before sundown. Today is Space Talk Sunday with Alex and Andy. But first, the news.
Today is Sunday, March 9th, 1969. The Tim's timepiece's time at the tone is 2 p.m. If your timepiece is right only twice a day, get down to Tim's Timepieces in Rice Village. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Schaefer with a recap of this week's news you can use. There were 2 major headlines on the international front this week, most notably that President Richard Nixon, in response to Viet Cong offenses in the South, has threatened to resume American bombing of North Vietnam. In the other big story, escalating border tensions have China threatening to go to war with Russia. A skirmish last Sunday at Zhenbao Island, which has been under Soviet occupation, was ignited by 3 platoons of specially trained Chinese troops. The Soviets suffered 54 deaths, the Chinese 29, and both sides blame the other for the start of the conflict. The federal government is about to launch a full-scale assault on illegal narcotic sales, which are second only to gambling as a source of income for organized crime. John E. Ingersoll, director of the U.S. Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, says the government has identified the major traffickers across the country and can now begin a sustained attack on their multi-million-dollar racket. In state news, a legislative panel in Austin is studying a bill that would permit therapeutic abortions in Texas when a mother would face substantial harm by giving birth. Representative James H. Clark of Dallas, who sponsored the bill, said abortions are, quote, going on now. They're just unregulated and unlicensed, unquote. Kaylin Graham, executive director for the Texas Catholic Conference and a staunch opponent of the bill, told the House Public Education Committee that liberalizing abortion laws would, quote, legalize violence against the most defenseless and helpless of our species, unquote. Said Graham, quote, the legislature has no more right to legalize the killing of unborn children than it has to kill 7-year-olds, unquote. On the local front this week, the Houston School Board voted to defend its position against busing additional black students to white schools. On Friday, board president Bob Eccles said he would seek the board's support of a plea to the NAACP that the group withdraw its proposal to achieve racial balance in schools by taking its case to federal court. Eccles contends that with some 37,000 of 81,000 blacks already in an integrated situation in Houston schools, the city has made more progress than many other big cities. There are proposals and counter-proposals for a University of Texas medical school that could be based in the medical center in Houston. It's not a sure thing, but the board that oversees public higher education in Texas has recommended that UT work on establishing a medical branch in Houston. Lastly, with spring training games having begun, the Astros are crying foul at baseball commissioner Bowie Kuhn. The team traded popular outfielder Rusty Staub to the expansion Montreal Expos in January for first baseman Don Clendenon and outfielder Jesus Alou, but Clendenon does not want to play in Houston and said this week he is retiring. As far as the Astros are concerned, that voids the trade, but Kuhn isn't buying Clendenon's retirement and has ordered Staub to report to spring training with the Expos and Clendenon with the Astros. If Clendenon doesn't show and the Astros get nothing else in return, this may go down as the worst trade in their history. Coming up next, Alex Stuckey and Andrew Dansby share their Apollo expertise while discussing this week's developments in the race to the moon. For KHCN, I'm Steve Schaefer.
You are listening to KHCN-AM 4747, Houston, Texas. News you can use and talk that matters.
Hey, since we didn't get the launch on the right day, is Chris there? That's affirmative. Okay, we've got a message for him. Okay, he's on the loop. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Christopher. Happy birthday to you. That was magnificent. The only thing, you may even overshadow the rendezvous with performances like that.
That's the crew of Apollo 9 yesterday. KHCN-AM 4747 also wishes Mr. Kraft a belated happy birthday. But Andy, we're not going to sing it. It's March 9, 1969, and we're talking all about Apollo 9 today. Whew, that's a lot of nines. How was your week, Andy?
Just super, Alex. It's been fun keeping an eye on the mission this week, and so far almost everything has gone according to plan. Always great to spend a Sunday afternoon with you and the good folks of Houston, Texas, Alex.
Likewise. I figure you and most of Houston, I guess the whole United States really, the whole world even, especially the you-know-whos, watched the liftoff on TV.
Sure did.
More than 6 million pounds, almost 6.5 million pounds of that magnificent machine with 3 men strapped in tight, lifted straight off the pad at 10 a.m. on the button, like it was nothing.
This is the first time men went up with the LEM, of course, the first time they've gone up with the whole configuration. NASA folks said it was the most risky flight of the Apollo program so far. 8.7 million pounds of thrust, 119 miles above Earth, 17,500 miles per hour, heaviest payload ever put into orbit at 297,000 pounds. Those numbers are just so hard to imagine. How fast is 17,000 miles per hour? Really? Means nothing to people like you and me.
Lots of firsts on this trip. Let's recap. As we said last week, Apollo 9 is just the next link in the chain of activities that will get our astronauts to the moon, ahead of the Reds and back safely. NASA confirmed this week that they're working toward a July 18 moon landing. That's Apollo 11, so it looks even more likely that Buzz Aldrin will be the first man to walk on the moon.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Like we also said last week, there are some things that had to go just right this week, and so far, they're hitting all the marks. Launch, perfect. Love that graceful roll she does as she really starts to get up there.
The yaw maneuver and the pitch and roll maneuver. It looks all kind of slow and graceful.
It may look graceful, but it sure ain't slow. When they finish the pitch and roll, they are booking. Like Mach 1, the speed of sound, 767 miles per hour. Boom. The stage is all ignited and burned on cue and dropped away, and then less than 12 minutes later, they're in Earth orbit. Hard to comprehend.
It never gets old. Saturn V launches are spectacular. We'll get to space in a moment.
Meanwhile, back here on Earth.
Just want to note that President Nixon called the astronauts' wives Monday.
Hold up a sec. Scotty's knocking on the glass. Looks like Steve Schaefer needs to cut in here.
It has come to our attention that there is a broadcast aggregation system named iTunes. Sources tell us that our Cigarettes and Rocket Fuel broadcast is available for what insiders are calling on-demand listening. It is purported that listeners are able to rate our weekly broadcast with 5 stars, and we have heard additional anecdotal reports of the possibility of favorable reviews. Our KHCN reporters are working on that story right now, and will return with additional details as they become available. I'm Steve Schaefer.
Thanks, Steve.
iTunes? Okay, getting back to President Nixon and the wives. I think we all have so much admiration for those ladies. They said they keep busy with house chores and watching TV and whatnot. I'm sure they were just a jangle of nerves on the inside. They all have kids, you know, and they just have to be strong and not act all worried. Mrs. McDivitt said she keeps her cool by staying active, but she did admit that she really is not calm at all. The kids all stayed home until their dads got into orbit. Then they went on to school. Why not, I guess.
Hey, did you know the pilot doesn't actually fly the spacecraft? We'll tell you about that in a minute.
You're listening to KHCN-AM 4747 Houston, Texas. Noticias que se puede usar y plática de importancia.
KNUZ Radio presents The Iron Butterfly, in person, Friday, March 21st. 2 great shows, 1 amazing night. 7 p.m. and 9:30. $350 and $450 in advance, $450 and $550 at the door. Houston Music Theater, where every seat is up close. Join them in Inagata Davida, baby. Don't you know that I'm loving you? Inagata Davida, honey. Don't you know that I'll always be true? Oh, won't you come with me and take my hand? Oh. Iron Butterfly, Friday, March 21st.
The crew is going to be busy. I know the wives are worried about how much their hubbies are working. The fellas are scheduled for a bunch of 16-hour days, and everybody knows the food is terrible. That's enough to make any wife worry, even without having her guy in space.
I guess so, Andy. The men have been training hard for this, and the families have been supporting them all the way. You promised to tell us who actually flies the spacecraft up there. Or is it a what? It's a what. I mean, I know it's a what. Go ahead and tell them. What's the what, Andy?
Okay. I know you've been itching to get to this part. Quoting from the Chronicle here, the real work of flying the spacecraft is done by an ingenious electronic device system that is coordinated and controlled by an onboard computer about the size of a suitcase. It's state-of-the-art.
Fun fact, folks, that computer has a 38,000-word memory. Amazing! Wow, thanks for letting me say that, Andy.
Happy to oblige.
The Apollo Guidance Computer, the AGC, is the latest kind of computer, built especially for this program at MIT, at their instrumentation laboratory. I don't know too much about these computers, but I'm sure excited about the possibilities. Computer scientists use a whole new language. According to the spec sheet, the AGC has a 16-bit word length with 15 data bits and 1 parity bit. That sounds impressive, right? The astronauts use a special new display and keyboard to talk to the computer, and they say this is one of the first integrated circuit-based computers. Not sure what that is. And some of the scientists predict that these computers will one day be in all of our homes. How about that?
Could happen. You never know. I mean, whoever thought we'd be trying to get to the moon? But catch your breath there, Alex, and I'll pass on some news. NASA has named a new administrator, Dr. Thomas Paine. He's been the deputy since James Webb retired last year. Mr. Nixon is said to have searched the whole country, and he found the right man right there in the office. No doubt, Dr. Paine will do a fine job.
Surely. Anyway, Tuesday was pretty quiet aboard Gumdrop. Just making sure they're on a good path and things are all in order. Wednesday was a busy day prepping the LEM for separation and getting the PLSS, remember, Portable Life Support System, ready for the spacewalk, which, turned into a space stand.
Rusty Schweikert had a rough patch Thursday, got a little seasick. Space sick, really, but they say he's doing fine now. Rather than a long EVA, Schweikert stood on the porch at the mouth of the hatch for more than a half hour. He wore the PLSS and was tied on with a rope to keep him from floating away. Scott was on Gumdrop's porch with a video camera and it jammed, so Rusty got to take in the view from there while Scott worked on the camera. Boy, oh boy, what a view, he said. I bet it is. They decided to cancel the other EVAs given Rusty's situation. Friday was the really big day for the Apollo program. Y'all know it worked out perfectly, but we'll talk you through it in a minute. And we have a special radio treat all the way from outer space. So stick around. Back in a flash.
Y'all are listening to KHCN-AM 4747 Houston, Texas. News you can use and talk that matters.
Attention engineers. Would you rather be working in Virginia? The Missiles and Space Division of LTV Aerospace Corporation is expanding programs in Virginia, offering excellent opportunities in the following fields: reliability engineers, quality assurance engineers, mechanical and electrical engineers, inspectors, technicians, draftsmen, and more. Send your resume to Professional Placement, Department L, Dallas, Texas, 75222. Again, zip code 75222. LTV Aerospace Corporation is an equal opportunity employer. Virginia is waiting for you.
In a nutshell, this flight is crucial because its success or, God forbid, failure will determine if a manned moon landing this year will remain feasible. And I gotta say, it's looking good.
Their schedule next week calls for photography, Earth observations, and other experiments. Then they tidy up the ship and bring it on home with a splashdown near the Bahamas on Thursday the 13th. We hope to have a report from the Chronicle's man aboard the recovery ship, the USS Guadalcanal, next Sunday.
Wait. Let's go back to Thursday for a minute.
We're jumping all over the place today. I hope you folks are keeping up. Hey, you kids in the back seat. Quiet down so Dad can drive and hear the conversation. Dads need a computer doing the driving so they can follow along with our show. That'll never happen.
Space sickness isn't that unusual any more than some folks get seasick on Earth. The doctors have determined it is not caused by radiation, so we don't have to worry about that.
Flight director Chris Kraft doesn't want to talk about it. He probably figures Rusty doesn't want to talk about it either. Kraft snapped at reporters. Look, we've told you a summary of the situation, and we're not going to say any more about it.
Fine. Can we talk about Friday now? It's the big day.
Sure enough, darling.
Their day started by putting their pressure suits on, and 16 hours later, they got to take those pressure suits off. And America should feel pretty good, optimistic even, about everything that happened in between. Hate to jinx it, but it feels like we're on target for July 18 moon landing.
We've saved the best part for last, and we're running out of time here, Alex.
Okay, I'll go as quick as I can, and you jump in if I'm missing anything.
Roger.
Remember Thursday, they prepped getting into the LEM. So the gear is ready. They got suited up. Schweikert and Scott moved into Spider, tested the systems, rendezvous radar, landing radar, and such, and then tried to undock. Nothing.
A couple latches needed some encouragement, and then they pushed off.
So now we have 2 manned spacecraft flying at the same time.
First time.
And that's why they needed 2 names, Gumdrop and Spider. And right then, I'm sure those big bosses didn't care so much about what they were called.
So
it worked. They flew off 100 miles or so, located each other perfectly with the radar. And here's that radio treat we promised. We'll play a little of that now. Maybe we'll have time to play a little more next week. There's still half a mission to go. Here's the sound of the crews and mission control redocking after separation. 1 ship becomes 2, and here 2 ships become 1 again, both firsts.
Jeez. Play the tape, Scotty.
Upside down again. Hey, I just thinking one of us isn't right side up. Okay, I have us about 370 feet. Okay, looks closer than that. Get done with it, though? How does that sports car handle, Jim? Pretty nice. I don't even see you in there, David. Oh, I'm here. Okay, I'm lined up in translation, but I can't tell what my attitude is, Dave. If I don't see it, oh, there it is, there. Now you're coming in. There you go. I think you got a handle on it now. But it keeps disappearing. Now you're looking pretty good. Top capture. All right, Gary. Okay. Let's get it lined up. Okay, why don't you do it? I can't tell where it is. We're free now. Good show, Spider. Yeah, it was a very nice docking. That wasn't a docking, that was an eye test. Hey, Houston, we're locked up. It sounds like you passed it 2010, Jim. That sounded real beautiful. Good show.
Far out, right?
Gotta admit. Yep, far out.
There's one more dicey moment after Schweikert and Scott rejoined Commander McDivitt aboard Gumdrop. They needed to jettison the LEM and get out of harm's way by performing a post-jettison separation maneuver, which they did, and it all worked out swell. Of Apollo 9's objectives, many of them were accomplished today.
There's so much more to talk about this week. It's been thrilling, but I see Miss Amber on the other side of the glass, so we'll be wrapping it up after this break.
Is someone missing in your life? Are you single, looking for new thrills, excitement? Computer Dating Incorporated can help. Give us a call without obligation. Match-O-Matic technology, building on years of thorough research, is a proven method that will bring you together with someone who is right for you. Call, in confidence of course, or find our coupon for a free questionnaire in your Chronologue TV section. With your likes and dislikes, using scientific matching, we will soon have you meeting new, interesting people for fun, or maybe marriage. The art of loving is for all of us. We accept Bank AmeriCard.
KHCN-AM 4747, Houston, Texas. News you can use and talk that matters.
This is Miss Amber with Space City Social. Ladies, run, don't walk to Neiman Marcus. Lawrence Marcus himself just returned to Houston from Manhattan, where he personally bought 40 mink pelts and hand-delivered them to our little hometown store. Local police officer B.E. Foster escorted Mr. Marcus and the furs from Hobby Airport to Neiman's. Get one while you can. They're being sold for a record $2,700 each. Or if you're in the market for some high-profile real estate, Astronaut John Glenn and his wife Annie are moving to New York City, and they're leaving their Bayou City home behind. It's on the market for $50,000 and near the Manned Spacecraft Center, making it the perfect place to raise future astronauts of your very own. Headed to the theater this week? The Big Bounce starring Ryan O'Neal is coming to a big screen near you. Isn't he just the dreamiest? Bad news for Jim Morrison fans. The lead singer of The Doors performed a very risque rock concert in Miami. A Miami court just issued arrest warrants on a felony charge for indecent exposure. Hopefully, this will straighten Mr. Morrison out. Tisk, tisk. And while you're out and about this week, try on a scarf from Sakowitz Department Stores. It's the most versatile piece you'll wear as we transition from winter into spring. Tie one around your coif, neck, or even waist for a 10-second instant update. This is Miss Amber with Space City Social. Let's talk next week.
You've been listening to KHCN-AM. We thank you for your kindness. We hope you enjoy your Sunday afternoons with Alex, Andy, and the rest of the Space Talk crew.
This is Steve Schaefer with your Sunday afternoon sports scoreboard. If your timepiece is right only twice a day, get down to Tim's Timepieces in Rice Village. The Tim's Timepieces time at the tone is...
Need more junk in your life, space nerd? We mean junk and nerd in the best possible way. Space junk, you nerd. Sign up for the Space Junk newsletter at HoustonChronicle.com/spacejunk. Roger that.
Cigarettes and Rocket Fuel is a Houston Chronicle podcast. Chronicle reporters Alex Stuckey and Andrew Dansby are Alex and Andy. Assistant sports editor Steve Schaefer is the newsman. A long time ago, he earned a degree in broadcasting. Amber Elliott is Miss Amber of Space City Social. She is the Houston Chronicle Society reporter. The ad guy with the radio chops is Chronicle staff artist Ken Ellis. He perfected those skills as the featured store intercom voice while working at the HEB as a young man growing up in Aransas Pass. Leela Merrill handles our website, HoustonChronicle.com/Apollo podcast. Chronicle archivist and researcher is Joyce Lee. Our logo was designed by Susan Barber. Scott Kingsley is the producer. This week, our station IDs are voiced by designer Gladys Ramirez, brand spankin' new Houston Chronicle president Mark Medici, and photo editor Jasmine Goldband. Mission Moon is a Houston Chronicle series delving into how a technological victory by our Soviet adversaries sparked the race for the moon, how Houston became Space City, and how the country came together to fulfill President John F. Kennedy's goal of reaching the lunar surface by 1970. The first story, by Alex Stuckey, yep, our Alex Stuckey, publishes March 10th. Cigarettes and Rocket Fuel is a history podcast, and we in no way intend to glamorize the use of cigarettes any more than we condone the sexism and racism that existed in society and in newspaper pages in 1969. We hope cigarettes, sexism, and racism all become history one day. Much of the ad copy was ripped from the pages of the Houston Chronicle and the Houston Post. The ads are not real. The time at the tone is not, well, probably not, 2 p.m. Wouldn't it be just nuts if it was? It might take a rocket scientist to figure out the odds of that. If you're still listening, fess up. Just go with the vibe, man. Share the love. We're on the Twitter, at @SIGS_Rocket Fuel. We will love you back. We love Crayola Girl. If you don't know what that is, we're going to play it through after these credits. Farrell Gibbs made it for us. Crayola Girl was produced by Brent Busby. Farrell's podcast is Unhand the Monster, Troubadours Live. The Houston Chronicle has a bunch of other podcasts you might be interested in. Barbecue, Texas Sports Nation, Behind the Walls, Politics, and more. I'm Nancy Sarnoff, Chronicle real estate writer and host of Looped In, a podcast about Houston real estate. The dirt, the deals, the people, the places. See you next week. Peace and love, y'all.